If you were asked to solve this, what would you do? You want to factor it? All right, let's factor it. What do I write? I'm taking your suggestion. Let's factor this. You can't, why not? Isn't 5 times 1 5 and they add, oh,
They're
no.
both possibly bad.
If this were a -4, then we could do it. No, actually, you can't. No, so you can't, this is not factorable. So, without using the graphing calculator, that's not one of our ways we can do this one. How are you going to do it? What other 2 methods do we know?
Quadratic.
Quadratic formula or complete the square. Now, I want you guys to get comfortable with both methods. You guys always jump for the quadratic formula. And really, the quadratic formula is harder. There's more areas to make mistakes. This one is awesome for completing the square. Why?
Because it has.
There's a 1 here, so you don't have to divide everything, and this is even. So how do we complete the square? What's step 1?
Subtract 5.
A lot of people forget to change the sign of this C value. Now how do you complete the square? You take half of 4 and square it. You're going to add that number to both sides. Now you factor this. And what's -5 plus 4? -1. Now what do you do?
Now you square root both sides.
Okay, what do you get? Now, you guys know what to do with this. Now we are going to expand our number system. This, yes, is an imaginary number. So mathematicians came up with a way to finish this problem. So if you look over here, I have typed in here, the square root, and this is stuff, this is not new to you. You know this. The square root of -1 is I. This is an imaginary number. Okay? So now, what are you going to write here? If this were a 4, what would we have done? We would have written plus or minus 2. But it's a -1, so we're going to write plus or minus I. And now, how do you finish this? Okay, so what do we have here? This is called a complex number. What is a complex number? It is a real number. This is a real number and an imaginary number. A real number with an imaginary number is called a complex number. Now, all complex number come in, we call it conjugate pairs. You're going to have a plus and a minus sign. So anytime you have a number that's imaginary as a 0, you're going to see the plus or minus. So if I gave you here some possible, if I gave you 3 minus 4i, 3 plus 4i will also be a solution. If I gave you -6i is a solution, you're going to get a positive 6i also. And by the way, for this one, what is the real number? It's 0. It's 0. It's 0 plus or minus. This is also a real number, and that's your imaginary number. The I is your imaginary number. So right here, I have examples. I type this up here. A plus bi. We call this standard form. Please do not write your answers, and I have seen this. I've seen people write their answers like this. Please don't do that. This is your A value. When I talk about an A value, that's the real number. So your answer should be written like this in standard form. It's -3 plus or minus 2i. This is your A value, plus or minus. This is the B value, and that's your imaginary number. Everyone got that? Okay, so now, look at this first example. Okay, the directions say find x and y. This is an algebra question. They are setting two complex numbers equal to each other. So if this complex number equals this complex number, what you can do is set your a values equal to each other, a equals a, and your bi equals your bi. So, make sure each number is written in standard form. So this is your a value, this is your a value, and that's your bi. And make sure that this is a, and it is, and this is your b, this 4y is your b value I. Now, because they're both in standard form, what you're going to do is set a equal to a. So you're going to say 2x equals negative 6. What's x? Very good. Now we're going to set bi equal to bi. So negative 3i equals 4yi. Is everyone following me here? Very easy. What cancels in this equation? The i's. You can divide both by I, these cancel. So you have negative 3 equals 4y. Divide by 4. And so y is equal to negative 3/4. Easy? Now be careful. What if I gave you this problem?
It's non-standard form.
She knew right away. You're so smart. Okay, if I said find x, what's wrong with this problem? It's not, this side's not in standard form. This is the a value bi. This one should be 4x minus 2i. Now you can set these two equal to each other. And by the way, I just made this up because I wanted to see if you could figure out x is 3.
X equals 3 for one. That's how it
Okay? This should have been, that should be negative 6. I just made that up. Okay? So, try 56 right now on your own. Yeah. Well, it's a whole thing. Are you leaving?
Where are you going?
And I'm sorry this is so blurry. These questions, you know why this says 56? Because it's in your book.
You copy and paste it.
Copied and pasted. And trying to blow this up as big as we could, and that's why it's so blurry. So if we do it this way, this is the kind of copying you get. Otherwise, you guys have to do it with paper and pencil. So I don't know, what's better?
This way.
This way? Okay. So no complaining. All right, how do you do this? Talk me through this. I want to know what x and what y are. What do you do? Are these in standard form?
Yeah.
A plus bi, yep. So you're going to set 8 equal to 4x, and you're going to set negative 2yi equal to 12i. Okay, what would x be? 2.
Negative 6. I mean positive 6.
And this would be what?
Negative 6.
Negative 6. Easy? Easy questions. Okay. The remaining numbers you do for homework. So let's move on so we can get through all the notes. All right, I want you to go back up to the very top of this page, and something got cut off, and I want you to fix this. Right here. Okay, do we all agree that the square root of negative 1 is equal to I? Okay? If we square both sides, which is what I wanted to do here, and it got cut off, put a square right here. If you took negative 1 and you squared it, we're gonna say that's equal to negative 1. So the square root of negative 1 squared is negative 1. So negative 1 is equal to I squared. Wherever you see I squared, you're gonna replace that for negative 1. Okay, everyone got that? So wherever you see an I squared, you are going to simplify it. You should not have any I squareds in your answers. You did not simplify it completely. Okay? Now, the next set of problems on the back page, you can add, you can subtract, you can multiply, and you can divide numbers in the complex system. You're going to treat the letter I like a variable, like x. But at the very end, you're going to make sure your answer is simplified. No I squareds, because some of these you're going to get an I squared. What's I squared equal to? Negative 1. And you're going to write your answer in standard form. What does standard form look like? A plus BI. So, let's fly through these. Remember, treat the I like an X. So how will you add these two complex numbers? Very easy. What's 1 plus I plus 3 minus 7I? What's the answer? Quickly.
4 minus 6I.
4 minus 6I. We do not have I squared in this problem, and it's in standard form. Done. Very easy, right? Okay, how about B? What are they asking you to do? Subtract. So what should you do with the negative? What do you do with this negative? Distribute. What's your answer now?
Negative 4 plus 9I.
Very good. Standard form. Good job. Okay, this one says 4I and multiply 2 plus 1/2 I. What do you get? First you get 8I plus 4 times 1/2 is 2. Now what are you going to do?
Negative 2 plus 8I.
Yes, because I squared is equal, this is equal to negative 1, and negative 1 times 2 is negative 2, so you're going to write negative 2 plus 8I. Questions? Okay, next one. D. What are they asking you to do? FOIL. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times negative 4I is negative 8I. Plus 3I. And then minus 4I squared. Okay, next. What do you want to do?
Change the 4.
You can combine like terms. That's good. What does this give you in the middle? And you guys can shorten this and do these. You could have done these two in the same step if you wanted to. You could have converted this. What does this piece turn into? What kind of 4? Why?
I squared is equal to
This becomes 4 because this is negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. And now you're going to add. Now someone in here is going to write negative 5I plus 10. That is correct, but it's not in standard form. So your directions will say write in standard form. So you will lose points if you do not follow the directions.
Can you go to C for a second?
See? Okay, how about A? The next, I know there's 2 A's. I combined 2 sections into these. What do you get for this one? Does anyone recognize
They cancel
the 2 middle? This is the difference of 2 perfect squares. So if you recognize that, all you need to do is 3 times 3 is 9. And the next 2 cancel out, so you do the last 2 terms. What's 2I times negative 2I? It's negative 4I squared, which is really 4, and 9 plus 4 is 13. Easy? And I put B here because a lot of you guys think you're going to distribute this 2. Some of you will write 16 plus I squared, and then you'll write 15 for an answer. Is that the right answer? It's 16 plus 4I and 4I is 8I, and then plus I squared. This is negative 1, so it's 15 plus 8I for an answer. Okay, questions? So for homework, you're gonna practice adding, subtracting, and multiplying on these. Okay, next. The patterns or the powers of I. If you were to take I and increase its, and by the way, this is a 1, it looks like a 2, it's I to the first power. I to the first power is I squared is negative 1, I to the third is negative I, and I to the fourth is 1. If you were to complete this pattern, you're going to see the cycle repeats. You're going to get I, then if you did I to the sixth power, you're going to get negative 1, I to the seventh power, you're going to get negative I, and I to the eighth, you're going to get a positive 1. That pattern keeps repeating. Well, and I wrote that here for you, the powers of I form a cycle. Any power of I will be one of 4 values. The answer is going to be either a 1 or a negative 1, I or a negative I. Now every year, students struggle on this question, and it's very easy. All you do is this. Here's an example. I to the 54th power. You are going to rewrite I to the 54th power in terms of I squared. So, why I squared? Because we know what I squared is. It's negative 1. I want you to say 2 goes into 54 how many times? You're utilizing that power to power rule. Everyone got that? Power to power rule. 2 times 27 is 54. If this were a, let's say if this were a 55, if you had I to the 55th power, you would have I squared, and then you'd have a 27, because that's 54, with 1 left over. So, it's either going to go into it evenly, or there will be 1 left over I. So how do you know if there's going to be an I left over? If it's an odd power. If this power is odd, there will be 1 I left over. Okay. If it's even, 2 goes into any even number with nothing left over, right? Now what you're going to do is simplify this. What did we say another name for I squared was? We said negative 1. And what's negative 1 to an odd power? Is it 1 or negative 1? What's negative 1 multiplied by itself 27 times? It's negative 1. There you go. Now look at this one. When I had a 55 here. 2 goes into 55 27 times, but we had 1 left over. So this one would be negative 1 to an odd power is negative 1. So this answer would be negative I. Well, what if it were a 56? I to the 56th power. You'd have I squared. How many times does 2 go into 56? 28 times. So this is going to be negative 1 to an even number is going to be a positive 1. And what do you think I to the 57th power would be? What's the next number? You have I squared. You're going to have 28, and then an I left over. So it's negative 1 to an even power is a 1, so this is going to be an I. So it's either I, negative I, 1, or negative 1. So you're going to play around with the bottom ones for homework. And again, if you want to check your answers, the odd ones are in the back of the book at home. Okay, keep going. Okay, what do you not want when you have a fraction, a quotient? What do you not want with respect to radical in the denominator. So if I is a radical, it's square root of -1. You don't want this, you don't want a radical in the denominator. So what do we do when we have radicals in the denominator? We rationalize. Okay? So, how do you rationalize the denominator? Do you guys remember how to do these problems when you had a radical in the denominator? You multiply by the opposite. What do you mean by opposite? Opposite of what? It had a special name. You guys remember the name? Starts with a C.
What is that?
Conjugate. You guys remember conjugate? Conjugate. What is the conjugate? It'd be 1 minus 2i. You're going to look at the denominator. There's your denominator. The conjugate of 1 plus 2i is 1 minus 2i. Why would we want to multiply this by 1 minus 2i? Because it's going to get rid of your radical. But is it fair to multiply the bottom by 1 minus 2i? Well, if you multiply the top by 1 minus 2i, isn't this over this 1? So can you multiply any number by 1 and it stay the same? Yes. So what we're going to do, our game plan is to take 3 plus 4i and 1 plus 2i, and we're going to multiply by the conjugate of the denominator, not the numerator. So, what are we going to do? We're going to FOIL.
Yeah.
FOIL and simplify. So, our numerator, what is 3 times 1? 3. And then we have minus 6i plus 4i, we're just FOILing. And this is minus 8i squared. Can we simplify that? Plus 8. Over 1 times 1 is 1. The next 2 will cancel out. That's why you want the conjugate. It's the difference of 2 perfect squares. And then this would be minus 4i squared, or just how about plus 4? Now simplify this. What do you have right here? And what do you have here? We have 11 minus 2i over 5. What if you got something like, for an answer, what if you came up with 10 plus 6i over 2?
Simplify.
How would you simplify this?
5 plus 3i.
Okay, so you have to put this into both. So you'd have 5 plus 3i, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is good. This is a good answer. What if you had 10 plus 7i over 2?
Leave it.
Would you write 5 plus 7i over 2? If you break it up, you could do that. You could do this. You could write 5 plus 7 over 2i. And that would be standard form. This number has to go underneath both of these. Some people will just, they'll do 5. They'll write 5. This is incorrect. Wrong. What's wrong with this? You can't take 2 and go put that under here, but not under that. It's just not fair. Okay. So 23 through 35 you're going to do for homework. It's part of your homework. So these problems are for homework. There's a few challenging ones. I want you to try them. I think you can handle it. And go to the bottom here. Number 5. I'm sorry, example 6. We do not want to leave a radical, especially if there's a negative underneath it now. What are you going to, how would you simplify A? What would you write for A? How would you simplify? Rewrite each of these following as a complex number. What would you write here? Yep. That's your B value, BI. what's the real number? It's 0. You don't have to put that 0 there, but 0 plus root 3I. You do not have to put that 0 there. How would you rewrite B? Anyone? 1 minus root 7I over 3. Can you rewrite this differently? 1/3 minus root 7 over 3. That's standard form. And how about C? What would you do on this one?
It's a lot of multiplying.
Look at this and look at this. Can you simplify these two? What is the square root of negative 4 equal to?
Square root of 4i.
What is it?
Square root of 4i. Or 2.
2I. How about this one?
3i.
Are we good? Now what are you gonna do? 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 3i is 21i. Minus 10i. And this is gonna be negative 6i squared or 6. Right? Final answer in
40.
standard form.
41
41.
plus 11I.
Very good. Are these easy? Good. So the bottom ones you get to do for homework.
Hold on a second.
What? Yes. Tell me.
Yeah.
On C?
Positive.
How to get what?
Why is it's negative 2? I'm just kidding.
This is negative 6i squared.
No, it's the way you transfer it on first.
This is 41, and that's We're not done. Okay. Number 7. How you gonna do this one? This is just like that first example I did. Right. How you gonna solve this one?
Quadratic.
Quadratic. Why aren't you gonna complete the square on this one?
2.
Because of this 2, yup, and the 1, it's an odd number. Let's review the quadratic formula. You could, yeah. Oh, yes, you could. Nobody wants to do that. Okay. We're still seeing people not know this formula very well. Yeah. So it's negative 1. You gotta know what A, B, and C are. Be careful. I could fool you and write this. Okay, make sure you know what A, B, and C are. You want this in standard form. That goes over there. Okay, so negative 1, opposite of B, B is 1. So it's negative 1 plus or minus. 1 squared is 1, minus 4. The A value is 2, and the C value is 3. And guess what kind of number this is? This is a complex number because you're going to have, what is 1 minus 24? Right? Now, we're not going to leave our answer like this. Now, how would you write this in standard form? It's negative 1/4 plus or minus root 23 over 4i. This is your A value. That's the real number. That's the A value. This is your B value. And there's your I. A plus BI. Now notice, whenever you have an imaginary number, a complex number, they come in pairs. If Negative 1/4 plus root 23 over 4I is there. Negative 1/4 minus square root of 23 over 4 will also be there, I. Okay? You're going to do these for homework. And look at question 8. Example 8. I wonder how many of you guys remember, do you remember how to factor these? The cubed, the sum or difference of two perfect cubes? Do you guys remember how to factor these?
Oh, sure. I'll just make sure we're okay with that.
Okay, let's review. Whew. Okay. So, what you have here, see how many of you remember this? This is a 9th grade question. Remember how to factor this completely? You take one of each of these, and whatever this is, it's going to go here. Because I could put a plus sign here, and it would look like that. Then what you do is you take these two and multiply them. You're going to multiply these two together and change whatever sign this is, you're going to make it the opposite. So this is going to be minus 3x. This one's always a plus sign, and you multiply these two together. Okay, now, how do you solve this one? This answer is x equals negative 3, but what you have to do here is the quadratic, because these are going to be imaginary. This is on your test, and a lot of people will get this answer correct, but they mess up these two. So look at this one. I'm going to give you another one.